the transformation of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. We've had so much work come out of that. That has catapulted us to where we are today, with more members being engaged in one of the largest committees that we have thus far in the association.
And I would say I'm so proud of our Government Affairs, GPIC, Government Policies Issues Committee. It has evolved over the years from years ago when I served on it for many moons, seeing it go from Government Affairs to Government Policies Issues Committee, and then just the respect that we have now in the community with the politicians. They are now coming to us as an association, asking for our input, asking for our opinion, and willing to work with us. And at some point in time, that wasn't the case.
One of the huge ones was during COVID and the pandemic, which we just got out of, well, a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, depending on your timeline.
That's right.
Thankfully, we had nurtured and fostered really good relationships with our elected officials. And so we were able to go to bat and have realtors and real estate sales and brokerage be deemed essential. And that was a huge win. And without those connections, which Teresa mentioned that we have built upon the last 5-10 years and longer, we were able to do that. And not all municipalities or counties were, but RRAR had great relationships and was able to get a big win for our members, our industry, and private property rights.
Not only that, we were able to help Durham obtain the same thing because they were held back and were not allowed to be considered essential workers. And because of the relationship we had built with them as well as with our supporters downtown, we were able to help them achieve that as well. So we were able to work during the COVID transition, if you will, as essential workers and be able to help our clients.
Let's talk a little bit more about COVID real quick.
I like to say that 2020 was almost the year that wasn't. We were dealt a lot of lemons and were able to squeeze a little bit of lemonade out of that. We went through, I think, the month of March with our meetings, and then we were shut down. Basically, we're Zooming from that point forward. It was a time of social unrest in the country based on a lot of things that had happened. We were able to, as Leslie alluded to earlier, I think create during that time a committee of 16 people that was the most diverse committee this association had ever put together to discuss things such as diversity, such as inclusiveness of our members, and being able to look at those things and ask the tough questions around the membership as a whole to determine where they had experienced perhaps discrimination in our industry and within our organization and being a member of our association. Out of that group that was chaired by Wendell Bullard, who was a past state president, wonderful man. After a lot of thought and prayer and discussion, we kind of asked him to do that. We voluntold him that he was going to do that. And out of that committee came some wonderful things Leslie has alluded to earlier, such as the platforms that were mentioned, discussed, that became later part of our strategic plan in our association and has brought us forward to this point. Being a much more diverse and a much more inclusive organization, inviting our entire membership and having them invite their friends to come be a part of this. And we're seeing it in the social sessions that we're having in meetings and the educational events, and even on our board of directors currently, we're seeing that come to fruition. So
yeah, COVID was a fun period of time for sure. Lewis let it off, and then I tried to help close it out, and we kept thinking we were through it, and we were not through it, and we were in it, and we were not in it. And I think I had my installation about September, which was interesting. I made for some really good punny jokes. We learned a lot. We learned how to pivot during that time. It was also another time of transition. We had some staff leadership changes, some joy of running the association, the MLS board, and the foundation all for a month and a half, which I don't recommend as president, but we got through it. And I really do think, like, looking back 2 or 3 years now, we are better because of it. It was a challenge. We learned things, and we have grown further because of it.
Leslie, during those 2 years, what were other members of the association saying to you and asking, and how did you advise them during these times of big change as a leader of the association?
I always approach everything with a sense of optimism and objectivity. And so that's always how I respond to either challenges and or opportunities. And so as we have described, that Lewis was 2020, Brett was 2021, and then here I come in 2022, post-COVID, and really bringing the organization back to business and bringing the members in the building. So that was my primary focus, was to get the members back engaged, for us to connect and to really be able to hear from them, because we had some isolation. COVID had taught us real resilience as an organization and how we can still communicate with our members, provide education and resources, although we weren't meeting in person. And I was really proud of that, and I wanted to share those experiences with our members, and I think they adapted well to the environment. And now that we are back in the building full force, is just representative of the connection that is required for us to be able to make important decisions. So it was a really great time. I had the opportunity again to continue, and I still do, to connect with our members and hear from them and feel connected, because I'm active agent and boots on the ground. So
Teresa, let me follow up on what Leslie just said there. Leslie's presidency and then yours, like everybody's starting to come back. How do you feel that member engagement evolved once we started having everybody back in the building and doing more things, not remotely?
I just applaud Leslie for her efforts, because without that, everyone would have been disconnected. So the groundwork that she laid, I was able to capitalize on that moving forward. And so people were open to coming back in the building. They weren't afraid. They knew that we were here, we were welcoming them. And it's like, come on, come in, let's get engaged. And you still have to remember the core of what we're here for. We're here to help you as a member and as an agent be successful.
Let's get away from code for now. I feel like we've done a pretty good job with that topic, and especially for this group. It was important to how leadership impacted you.
Jane, before we get away from COVID, may I make one more mention?
Yes, sir.
Toward the end of 2020, we were invited by Kristen Kuster, who was the state president at the time, to meet on a Zoom call with our counterparts in Canopy to discuss the year and the achievements of the year. I'd be remiss if I didn't say that meeting went extremely well. We kicked their butt in 2020. We carried on a lot of things. We had a lot of activities. We made a lot of progress, even in a year where we basically were shut down.
And we still have some of the benefits of that, right? Like the Zooming that we have today, and the
Yes.
meetings and ability to do things remotely, which it's opened it up to even more members who may not be able to get down here every time,
Right.
but to participate in a way that they can. So, I mean, though it was a challenge, we overcame it quickly. In person is still definitely better
Yes.
than online, but having that option, having that technological change that we went through, and I think the association is still really striving in a dual mode at times if needed version, and that's a big plus.
I would venture out there and say yes, because I think, as Brett alluded to, we would never have fathomed conducting a board meeting via Zoom or
Right.
any sort of electric format. And what we saw was that we could do that efficiently and still handle the business of the association well, including learning opportunities, including presentations. So we have successfully done that. And then over time, hindsight, we have improved on how we've done that, because with everything, you start out one way and then you look back and say, okay, we could do this better. And now we have some processes in place and policies around how to do that, the way that we know we can have that involvement, because there is good and bad with everything. And I would say that yes, you've got to keep your meetings short and concise and to the point, because we are all very busy and information comes to us quickly. And I personally don't like sitting in the meeting that's going to go more than 30 minutes. I'm just kidding.
We'll keep this one for you.
Right, just keep it between us. Don't tell anyone. But absolutely, we have done that well. Technology has been our friend. And I don't know what my other past presidents here would like to share on that, but it was well for us.
Yes, I would agree. Technology has really been our friend. And, any time you pivot and you have to go down another path, it requires a lot of effort, and I have to give kudos to our staff, for hanging in there with us, because as members, we're also agents. I am, a practicing agent. So we need things to work, and we need things when we need things. So with the staff, working with us and collaborating, with the members and the leadership, that allowed us to kind of figure out, okay, how do we do this? We would bring it to staff. This is what we need. Can you help us get to that point? And I think, thank you, for taking those bruises and those hits, because we are very demanding. It's just our nature of our business, because time is money. And that's what we always have to approach this with our members. Even though we're providing the education and support, time is money. And we need to make sure that we're in sync with our members when it comes to, technology.
Technology was wonderful. However, I would also go so far as to say lots of things are a double-edged sword. And hearing from our members, everybody missed the personal interaction during that time. And it was so great when we were able to get back together. And even having said that, it took a long time for people to come back into this building to get back together. But I think when we did, it was a wonderful thing. Everybody getting together, hugging necks, pressing flesh, saying hi. That personal interaction is incomparable.
I mean, communication, promotion, marketing, letting them know what is going on, continuing a varied set of offerings, right? Because not everything is going to appeal to everybody. You kind of have to figure out what different groups may need, what is their tie-in, and then let them know what we are doing, let them know the opportunities that they have for each other and to get involved. And it can be something small. Maybe they're jumping on a Zoom call, or it could be something big and they're coming to like an in-person seminar, or when we have elected officials or town staff or other volunteer groups or things the foundation does. There's a litany of amazing things we do. Sometimes we just have to be a little bit better about finding those people and communicating exactly what those are.
Right. And we find that our meeting attendance is high when there are on issues that are currently facing the marketplace. So just really tying into understanding what our members' needs are and then putting on programming. That's where our committees come into play, because our committees are led by our Realtor members, and our Realtor members know what's happening in the marketplace. So when they're sitting down and planning out their year and thinking about their programming, it's usually focused around what they're seeing in the marketplace and what they're hearing. And that's a critical component of participation, because we all show up to things that have value to us. And if I may just segue back to RPAC, the Realtor Political Action Committee really is one of the major cornerstones of what we do, is the advocacy work. And we really have shown over the past years how effective we can be with our fundraising and the importance of establishing those relationships with our legislatures. And so that is something that we've done really well, and we've seen a lot more participation from our members who want to get on that committee and serve and who want to fundraise. And so it's been a great opportunity for our association. And so it just speaks to when people connect with the issue, they want to get engaged, because as Brad had mentioned, we were deemed essential, one of the first municipalities to be deemed essential during COVID, and that really hit home and was a support to me when I was chair of the RPAC committee, and how members resonated with that, and we really raised a ton of money during that year. So it just really shows that when we connect with members in a real way, they get engaged, they attach to our message, and we are a member-led organization. And so we want our members to feel empowered to show up, take action.
I think one of the things that along those lines also wasn't it Shanta Jackson who came up with the "You Belong Here"? Mm-hmm. I think that's an important statement that we should make sure that we continue to publicize and encourage. And also, one of the things that I tried to emphasize was that when you come to a function, you enjoy yourself, invite one of your friends to the next one, and they can invite one of their friends to the next one. And so that way we build back to that diversity and inclusion again. That kind of supports all of that. And again, we're seeing a lot of that occur in our committees and our board meetings and so forth now. So
I feel like it has kind of opened up the floodgates. And what I mean by that, we all were encouraged to reach, if we see someone that attended an event that we had never seen before, go up to them, say hi. But there was nothing ever in place where it was that was a target to say, I'm specifically going to have a table, which would be a resource for those, and they walk by and the question is asked, have you ever attended an event before? So you're engaging that member, because a lot of times member would come, and we all have, we have the familiars that we see at each event. So this gives us another ability or an arm to reach out to those so they'll come back. Because a lot of times if someone comes to an event, they made the effort. But they come in, they sit, kind of off to the side. Nobody says anything to them, and then they leave. It's the experience. So I can say we are creating an experience with the You Belong Here campaign.
We've got a litany of things that we have done, but while I was president, one of the things that we did was we had revised the committee that it was actually called, help me with the name again. It was called the LID committee. Now it's the Leadership Identification Committee, and it was for more like credentializing committee. So what we created was a task force to allow more expansion of that committee to be able to identify leaders all year long, and to be able to then have a portion of the committee where the members were tasked to go out and identify people way ahead of application for committees, so that we can start engaging the members at a higher level, so that we don't have end of the year where it's the same people or maybe people who are more familiar. So that was one of the initiatives that I had the opportunity to work on, as well as creating Toastmasters. So one of the things that we've heard for years and years, that people are afraid to get up in public and do public speaking. And so many national renowned speakers say the same thing. We all get nervous. And so I thought about that in a way personally, as well as also in recognizing my other peers who at times we all stumble. And for some, that is a barrier that they're not able to overcome. So I wanted to be able to offer an opportunity for our members to come in and work on that professional development, because that's always been my platform: professional development, advocacy, professionalism. So it's really great to see how the Toastmasters International is working. Members are getting engaged. They really enjoy it. And so those are the two things that kind of stick out in terms of what I could see as something long-standing with any organization. But we have so many great things, and I'm going to yield my time down to my other colleagues because they've also done some extraordinary things. But those are two that stand out to me.
I would say, continuing on Lewis's spark with the DEI initiatives that we had, that was a huge part of 2021, continuing that through, and it continued to grow and grow and grow again as we've got the You Belong Here now. Also, 2021, the COVID year, was just an interesting year as well. Got a really good chance to get new direction on the staff side here, a lot of time with the search committee and everything else on repositioning where we were going from the staff side of that. That was a large part of 2021. My year was more of like trying to maintain what was going on and keep us going on the good things we've had and clear COVID out, than it was of launching a lot of new initiatives. And thankfully I was bookended by two great leaders on either side of me, with Lewis Grubbs and Leslie Williams, and followed again by Teresa Pitt. And so those torches were not just lit and put out in one year, but were carried throughout the years for a greater good for everybody.
Brett, I wanted to give Brett his kudos in that I was his wing woman. But what I found about his leadership, though, it was very inclusive. We had a team. We built a team, and he ensured that I was engaged and I was aware of different decisions that he was making and being part of that. That's another aspect of leadership, is that you bring on the next leader and include them in the process. And I think we had a great synergy within our leadership team on the executive committee. And then I carried that on to past President Pitt, that I wanted to make sure that she was engaged and knew every decision that I was making, and that I took her input and I heard from her. And so that's how we all kind of worked together. And although Brett, like he was saying, major initiatives, but what he did was he created a calm. He created an opportunity for us to be engaged. And he always came in and he was like, it's gonna be fine. I'm like, Mom, what do you mean? So he's like, no, it's gonna be good. Don't worry. And so I appreciate that about you, a level-headedness, consistency.
Yes.
So that's what stands out for me, my friends.
Thank you very much. That's very kind of you to say. And it is important, right? We want to bring up the next leaders behind us. We want to also try to broaden the tent. I mean, that's what we're all trying to do here. Get more people in the building, involved in volunteering with RRAR, and really kind of build them up. And I mean, leadership isn't from sitting there being at the top. It really is trying to broaden the base, right?
Yes.
And bring others into the decision making and everything else. And I think we all have excelled at that in the last 4 years, and continue on with our current president now.
All four of you here have done a great job with that, and I imagine the goal for everyone is always, you want leadership to be better than it was when you were there. Like improvement as time goes on. I think Bob, we've done a fantastic job with that. Yes, sir.
I'd like to make more mention of one more thing that we accomplished. And this goes back to 2019, pre-COVID.
Yeah.
A little involved story, but in 2019, NAR met in San Francisco, and at that point in time, we met with the delegation from NAR India. And we established some guidelines. We made memoranda of understanding with them and with Main Street Association out of Chicago. And we agreed to essentially help them any way we could to organize and develop their organization within the country of India. And as a result of that, 2020 came, everything got shut down. They came over here in 1920. We were scheduled to go to India, but nobody was traveling. And so that got put on the back burner. However, the relationship continued, and we met with them several times through their meetings and our meetings through Zoom. And as a result, later, Madam President Williams formed that relationship and brought it back to life. And we were able to go through her leadership. We also hired our DEI director, Michelle Hume, during our 2020 year as a result of our committee that we had meeting on the initiatives that we put forth with the items to discuss, so to speak. And as a result of that, through Leslie's leadership, Leslie and Michelle, and I was invited to go with that, and I'm appreciative of that. It was such a great event. We met in India, Mumbai, and in Bangalore for the NAR India convention. We had a wonderful time, met a lot of wonderful people, and I think made a good impression on them for Raleigh Regional Association. So thank you.
And we were on a national panel to discuss organized real estate in Bengaluru, in the city of Bengaluru, in a castle, mind you. But it really sort of elevated our global footprint. And you're right, this was something that was started earlier on in signing that memorandum of understanding. So it was a great opportunity to be able to travel to India.
In a castle, in Bengaluru, in rainy season, with no air conditioning.
No, we survived.
But we did, and it was a great event.
You're a great ambassador, so that was a big event.
I'll start growth. And when I say growth in our footprint, as far as the members that we're reaching, growth in understanding why we're here and our purpose of what we're here and how we assist the members, and also growth in membership, but just individual growth. Because leadership, people look at leadership and they're like, oh, well, they have they put you in different kind of buckets. But leadership is about caring and wanting others to succeed. We're separated by our different positions, but the priority is to see others succeed, not only in the association, but in our membership. So I would just say overall growth and maturity.
To continue to grow as an association, but what I think is, as probably every 20 years or so, something major happens in the industry. And now that we're seeing the changes in terms of the role of the realtor, that we have an environment that's nimble enough to allow us to have that flexibility to grow and develop and be something other than where we are right now. And I think having the mindset of future and looking at the future, looking at technology, what is the demand in the marketplace, and being able to adjust to that, and allowing us to be able to work together, whether we're independent firms, large brokerages, whatever that looks like. That's always been my mindset, is that we are moving in the same direction. And once we recognize that we're moving in the same direction, but with different maybe tools that we're using, maybe somebody has an airplane, the other person is rowing in a boat, but we're moving in the same direction, and that creates the opportunity for us to expand, grow, and develop as an organization and as an industry. Because I would love to continue to see that collaboration and getting that big picture mindset that we all are in this together, and if I win, we all win.
In the next 100 years, I think it's really important for RAR to not only continue to change, but to embrace change, because if there's one thing we know, change is going to continue, right?
Yes.
It's not going to stay the status quo. Show our value to our members, show our value to the community, the elected officials. It may be very different what people get from value from the association this first 100 years, or
Right.
even the last 5 or 10 or 20, and what that'll be the next 5 or 10 or 20. But it's continuing to adapt and try to bring in new ideas, different schools of thought on how we can continue to provide the best value for our association, our members, and the community as a whole.
Well, to go back to the name of the committee we were talking about earlier, a place at the table, we all have heard, if you don't have a place at the table, generally you're on the menu.
That's right.
So in my mind, I see a couple of things I would love to see, and that is for us to continue to raise up leaders who have a heart for service as
Yes.
opposed to self-edification, and to be able to come in and lead our organization to continued success, and them to continue to raise up leaders behind them who have the same goals and the same mindset. Secondly, I think engagement is certainly important. We have to continue to engage our members so that they will belong and feel like they belong and be a part of this organization, which is a fine organization that we know has been in place for 100 years now. And the third thing I think is we have to make sure that we continue to emphasize relevance of realtors. We have to create value. We have to continue to create value in our business with our clients so that they understand that we add value to this process and continue to work to their benefit as a fiduciary for their best interest in the process of buying and selling real estate. I don't foresee, and I may be wrong, I don't foresee real estate ever being less than a person-to-person, face-to-face business in some form or fashion, regardless of technology. I think we will always have a place where a realtor will have significance and importance and relevance. And I hope that will continue and be emphasized and encouraged.
I think that's a pretty good way to end it right there.
Yes.